Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. You are here for HoneyBook Smart Files using scheduling to streamline bookings. And I don't know about you guys, but I see people are stoked in the chat. Amazing. All caps stoked. That's exactly how I feel as well. How long have you guys been waiting for this, right? Like, we are so happy to be here today. The agenda for today's session, I know you guys are all dying to hear about this. We're going to go through some high level, kind of foundational information to kind of set the stage before we get into the real kind of meat of today's content. Okay, so first things first, we're going to be going through what are smart files. We need to understand the scheduler. So we're going to go through understanding the scheduler and what that means, what that looks like, how to actually set up sessions in the scheduler. And then we'll go through some options and use cases for sharing those sessions. So that'll be a good chunk of time. And then more specifically, we'll focus around how to integrate your scheduler into files, because that is the super exciting thing that we came out with this week. And that's probably why you guys are all here. So towards the end of the session, we'll be focusing more on the options and use cases, and then how to get your scheduler into files. And then, like I said, hopefully a little over 10 minutes for questions at the end, because I know you guys probably have a ton, but hopefully the content we have planned will answer a lot of them in advance. Okay, of course, I also need to introduce myself. So my name is Mac. I am part of the product education team here. I have been with the company for nearly 6 years, which is so crazy to say. I have seen this product go through so many different iterations, and it's so exciting to see these new updates coming out, things like scheduler, things I know you guys have been asking for. I'm just like so happy to be able to bring this to you and help you understand how to better use it. So that being said, our goal for today's session is to have you guys leaving here knowing how to build a file that allows your clients to schedule, so book time, and sign and pay all in one file. Okay, that's our high level overview of our goal of what we want. Of course, we're going to take some, kind of nuanced paths to get there and learn the ins and outs and intricacies of the system and what's required to do this, right? But my goal is to have you guys leaving today's session knowing how to do this. Okay, so we're going to go through, of course, setting up the scheduler, go through your options, the different use cases, like I've been saying, but we are going to spend a larger emphasis of our time today using the scheduler for your booking process, so you can give your clients that really seamless experience. So whether that fits your specific process or not, you'll still be able to take, because that's kind of like the ultimate goal, right? Like the ultimate streamlined process is including all of those things in one file. So if that doesn't apply to you, maybe you take the first part or the last part or somewhere in between, right? So regardless of this, if this specifically applies to you, you will be able to take bits and pieces of today's session or everything that we discuss and apply it to your own process. Okay, so without further ado, what are smart files? So first things first, if you have not opted into smart files yet, I want to go ahead and send out this opportunity for you guys to add smart files to your account, because you're not going to be able to add scheduler to your files unless you have smart files. Smart files are the files that can do this. So you need to make sure that you've added the smart file functionality to your account first. So first things first, if you've not done that, go and do that now using the pop-up that I just sent you guys. It's over in this corner, I think, and it's up in the top of the chat pinned there for you. Okay, so big picture, smart files are a new way to combine any steps of your process into a seamless and completely customized client experience. So basically everything that a typical file can do, right? We're thinking invoicing, contracts, service selection, questionnaires, all of that kind of typical functionality now in one customized document. So the main things that have changed now are the design and function of these files. Those are the two kind of constructs that have really changed here with smart files. So In yesterday's world, your process was defined by kind of rigid, predefined functions, formats, designs. Files could do maybe one, max two things. So now with Smart Files, we're allowing you to do everything, all of those things in one beautifully branded, compelling document. So that just means that you truly get to define what your process looks like, what you need your files to do, what you need your files to look like, and you're in full control. You have full flexibility there, right? That's ultimately what we're talking about here, is like ultimate freedom and flexibility when it comes to your files. So what does this look like from a design perspective? The design changes that we're talking about are your colors now can be customized, your fonts can be customized, you can even upload your own fonts, you guys. Your image, the sizing of the images, the layout of the images, where they go on the page. You can even add things like video. You can now have multiple pages within each document. So you can see over here on the right-hand side of the screen, we have the different pages outlined for different pieces of content to convey to the client. So we're basically talking about a super, super dynamic, interactive web page PDF kind of a thing. Okay. We're calling it Smart Files to keep it simple, but if that makes it easier to think about it that way, this is kind of what we're working with. Okay. You can also customize all of the CTAs on these pages, tons and tons of customization available to you from a visual design perspective, right? But from a function perspective, what we're talking about is that obviously one single file can contain any of these elements. So what does that look like? We're talking about text and images, everything we just saw on the previous slide. We talked about video a little bit. So this is great for welcoming your clients. We all know short form video is like leading charge with business right now. TikTok's blowing up. We're all trying to figure out how to keep up with all this stuff, right? So video is an incredible way to show face with your clients, put your best foot forward, and have a really personal interaction with them inside of a file without maybe having to meet with them over Zoom or meet with them in person, or still having those really personal interactions with them. So video is a great way to do that. Obviously, questions are included here, you can see too. So that's like our questionnaire functionality, any forms that you might need the client to fill out. So we're talking about collecting information really at any stage. So maybe you need feedback on a design. Maybe you need to further qualify an inquiry. Maybe you want your clients' take on how the project went. You want to collect feedback after you've completed work with them, right? There's lots of different options for using questions. I think specifically when it comes to scheduling, right? Because that's what we're talking about today. Maybe when someone schedules a call with you, you need them to answer a certain number of questions so that you have that information going into your meeting with them. That is a great tool to use, okay? And you can absolutely do that. Down in the bottom row here, we're looking at our actions. So things you can consider there are service selections. This is great for those kind of interactive pricing guides. You can showcase the different offerings that you have and services that you have with their price points, and allow your clients to actually select what they're going to be moving forward with you. So, that is massive. It makes for a very, very streamlined booking process. Super powerful when combined with the invoice tool, right? Because you're allowing them not only to select from your package of options, but they can also move forward with submitting payment or submitting retainer to complete kind of the booking for that. So that's another really fabulous way to streamline things. Contracts and e-signatures, all of the same functionality that we're used to with one file, right? Now it can all be done in Smart Files. So depending on what your unique process is, any of these things can live in one file. That's what Smart Files is all about. So now you'll notice we've got this lovely new scheduler component. So how does scheduler come into play with all of this? First things first, we need to understand this scheduler component. What is the purpose of scheduling? What does scheduling even mean? If you're not familiar with a scheduling tool or a scheduling solution, what is this going to look like? So the purpose of having a scheduler is very simple. It allows you to showcase your availability to your clients so that they can select a time that works best for them. So you can customize the length of the meeting, the type of the meeting, whether it's a video call, a phone call, it's an in-person meeting. You can customize the instructions that your client is getting upon selecting their time. So very straightforward here. This is kind of a client-side view. They can see it's a 60-minute consult. It's going to last 60 minutes. It is a video call, and they can see your availability here, search through, and find the right time that works for them, right? Okay, so how do we get this set up? How do we actually do this? How do we build a session in HoneyBook? So first things first, you're going to need to set your time zone. So you actually do this in your company settings. So I'll walk you through where we go. First things first. So now we're getting into like the meat of this, right? Like we understand what scheduling is for. Now, how do we do it for ourselves? This is how you build a session type in HoneyBook. This is how you set up Scheduler so that by the time we get to that file that is our ultimate goal to build, we have our sessions already set up, kind of that preliminary work. You can build a session type directly from a file, but if you were going in kind of the ideal path, like if I was there doing it with you, this is the path I would recommend you go, right? Okay, so first things first, we want to set our time zone. So we're going to come over to company settings, and we are going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. And this is where we set our time zone for our account. Just make sure that this matches the time zone that you are actually in. That is going to make sure that your calendar and everything is working smoothly and you don't get weird, funky times in the wrong time zone that you're not actually functioning in. Okay, so first things first, just double check that and make sure that that looks good to go. The next piece here is connecting your calendar. So you can connect your iCloud, your Outlook, or your Gmail calendars. So again, we're going to pop over to Tools and Scheduler. We're going to come over here to Calendar, and this is where you can connect your calendar, and it's going to give you your options here for how to connect. You can even learn more. Click this, it'll take you out to a Help Center article that tells you more about integrating your calendar. The reason this is important, the reason I need you guys to do this is because this allows HoneyBook access to what you already have going on, what is already in your calendar. If you have brunch with your mom, if you have a yoga class, if you have other appointments that you have in here, HoneyBook needs access to those things so we don't double book you. So you need to connect your calendar as step 2 here to make sure that HoneyBook has visibility into that. Not that your clients have visibility into it, but HoneyBook as your system that is managing your schedule for you has access to, so that we know what availability to display to your clients. Okay, so this is step number 2, is connecting your calendar. Step number 3 here is going to be actually going forward with creating your session. So we can go ahead and actually do that now. So I'm going to toggle back to Scheduler, and you guys, both Calendar and Scheduler live up here in the tools, right? We've got Scheduler right here and we've got Calendar over here. So however you want to get there, you can get there. So you'll come into your Scheduler and you're going to create a new session type. For the sake of today's example, I'm going to save us a little bit of time and just hop into a session that I've already set up so you can just kind of follow along the steps and see what it looks like. So first things first, you'll have the option to select what type of session you're setting up. Is this a phone call? Is it an in-person meeting? Is it a video meeting? Is it some other type of meeting that you have going on? So first things first, select your type of session. Then you're going to go ahead and give it a title. This is how it will display to your clients, but this is also how you will decipher what the session is. So for me, I know that this particular 60-minute meeting is going to be a consult that I offer, and I use Zoom. So if you have video set up, it'll actually drop down to allow you to choose what video program you use, and you can actually integrate your Zoom account over in the company settings as well. So if you use Zoom, you can do it over there. And then it's just going to auto create a Zoom link at the scheduled time so that the client has that automatically added to their calendar. You don't have to manually do that or anything. When the Zoom integrates with HoneyBook, that'll all happen automatically. Okay, so you're going to choose the type. Now you're going to choose the duration. So how long is this meeting? very straightforward. Is it 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15, 60? What's going on? How long are we going to do this? You can even go up to hours. And then again, reiterate your time zone here so that you are operating in the correct space with your clients. When can this session be scheduled? Is it indefinite, or do you want to have a fixed date range or a rolling window? They can only see your schedule for the next 14 days, kind of deciding how you want that to be displayed to your clients, or even how you personally want to showcase that availability based on whatever it is you might be setting up for your business, right? If you're testing a new session type, maybe you just want to show a rolling 14 days, and then that way you can kind of cut it off if it's not working or something like that. Okay, so different options for you there. You can choose the session color if you're an organizational queen like me. You love this kind of thing. Instructions here. This is the information that the invitee is going to have access to. So any reminder emails or things that are sent out to them, these instructions will show up. So you can keep it kind of brief and general here, because you want this session to apply to multiple people. So you want to keep it a little bit general and just kind of inform them what this session is about, how they might prepare for the meeting, where you're meeting, those kinds of things. Okay, you can control your reminders down here. So do you want one to go out 1 hour and 1 day before? You can also have it sent to yourself. And then if you don't want to send these, you can just click the little X. Now, down to your availability. This is the fun part. This is where you set your preferences for your availability for this particular session. So if you remember, this is my 60-minute consult. So for me, this is just a video conference that I have with my clients. I can do these Monday through Friday, and I can do them 9 to 5. I don't really have any limitations here, especially because, remember, my external calendar is already synced with HoneyBook. So it's already accommodating for those existing appointments, those existing sessions, those existing meetings on my calendar. So I will never be double booked. I do not need to account for that here. This is just generally saying, during what hours am I willing to host this kind of meeting? Okay, that's the way you want to think about it when you're setting your availability. And maybe I want to say, hey, I'm going to reserve, actually, this is something I do. I'm going to reserve Fridays. These are my no meeting days. So I am going to apply to all Fridays, and I'm going to remove my availability. So I'm actually going to take these sessions Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5, right? We're going to reserve Fridays for our productivity time. Do you want to allow any buffers? Do you want to allow 15 minutes between each meeting that you have going on? Do you want a minimum amount of notice? A client cannot book me within 24 hours. It has to be longer than a 24-hour window. Do I want to show custom increments of time, or am I okay with the typical increments of time that HoneyBook displays? I personally find leaving this one toggled off is fine. And do I want to include any team members? This specifically is for a round robin of scheduling appointments. This is not to say I want this meeting to include this team member. That actually is not a functionality currently in HoneyBook. So what we're doing when we toggle on team members is we're saying, if I am available, or if Katie is available, or if Stephanie is available, it can round robin to either one of us. It's not all of us, okay? So either leave that on or off. And then the final component here is just the confirmation page and confirmation emails. How do you want those to work? What do you want that to look like? Okay, now we can save and finish, which is actually our last piece here. So once we've got our session set up, so we've gone through these 3 steps, right? We've set our time zone in the company settings. We've connected our external calendar. We've created our session type. Now we're going to save that like we just did. And now we're going to share it. So there are a lot of options when it comes to sharing your scheduler from a business perspective, from a process perspective, from a functionality perspective in HoneyBook. So this is what we're going to basically spend the rest of our time during today's session going through. So in terms of those options and use cases, it really depends first and foremost on your unique business process and your unique approach. So at HoneyBook, we call this your client flow, okay? And this is something that whether you're a HoneyBook member or not, your client flow represents that kind of middle ground where you and your client are doing business together, right? Because you've got your back end internal business workflows, and then you've got the side of your business, kind of the front end that your client sees that they interact with, paying an invoice, scheduling a session, signing a contract, those kinds of things. And then you have your operational side. So your client flow is that middle ground where you and your clients are meeting along your journey of doing business together. So from inquiry through selling your services, through getting booked, through managing that project, through offboarding them, what are those different stages for your unique business and your unique process? And what are the kind of elements from your business management software do you need to function during those different stages? Okay, so we're going to go through typical steps in a client flow right now, but just start thinking a little bit on your unique kind of client journey, your unique client flow. What does that look like, and where do you think you could benefit from including the scheduler? And more importantly, when you're including the scheduler, how would you like to share it with them? And we're going to go through all these use cases, okay? But that's kind of setting the stage for what we're about to get into. So some examples and scenarios we can talk through pre-inquiry, okay? We also call this step selling services, or maybe a little bit before selling services here. So this is for that pre-inquiry stage. So someone is assessing your business. They're deciding if you're a good fit. They are thinking of inquiring. I see some businesses have a scheduler link directly on their website, right? Because they offer a free consult call or a free meeting or a discovery call, something that is low entry, super simple for clients to just get on their calendar immediately. And this is kind of a really low-hanging fruit, but it's also a really unqualified lead, right? Like they're not giving you much information. They're getting access to your calendar immediately, and they're going to come in and book time with you, really, potentially without even paying, right? So this is great for those businesses who offer those free calls to inquirers. So you can, in the scheduler, all you'll have to do is copy this link. So for every single session that you have, you can look for this little link icon, and you can embed that directly on your website the way you would normally embed your scheduler. So if you currently offer a free consult call or something like that on your website, on your social, whatever it might be, go ahead and replace those links with your new HoneyBook scheduler link instead. Okay, so that's the first option we can talk through, okay? The second option, so there's a couple that kind of come under the selling your services category. So this is typically the step where you would be sharing pricing guides, those kind of more in-depth intake questionnaires. You're really starting to qualify those leads. So the pre-inquiry stage is that more unqualified stage where you can just have the link directly on your website. Selling your services may be where you're starting to get a little bit more of a qualified inquiry. So maybe they've submitted a basic contact form, and now you want to allow them to schedule time with you. So they're a little bit more qualified. They've filled out some basic questions using your contact form. And for this particular use case, I would still recommend copying the link. And then what you're going to do is come over to the contact form. You'll come over to settings, and you can use your own custom URL. And you can paste in your scheduler here. Okay, and what this is going to do is it's going to say anyone who inquires, they're going to fill out the contact form. So again, with the contact form, you can embed this directly as the contact form on your website. You also have a direct link version that you can share places, but basically this is your entry point to your business. The contact form is stop number one for the client. But once they have that little bit of skin in the game, you've gotten a little bit more information from them. You've got name, email, phone number, any other questions, right? Because you can add however many questions you want here. Once they fill this out, you can redirect them to the scheduler page. So both of these options, both that pre-inquiry option that we just talked about and the contact form option will add that person to your HoneyBook pipeline automatically. It's just that with this scheduler link directly embedded onto your website, the only information you're going to have about them is name, email, and the time that they've booked. So it's a very unqualified lead, right? But when you're doing it this way, you can ask as many questions as you want here. You can have, however much detail you want, however little detail as you want, and then you're going to redirect them after submitting this form to the scheduler. So now they'll come in with all of these questions answered, name, email, phone number, all of this information already submitted, and the time already booked on your calendar. So a little bit more of a qualified lead there. The next option for under this kind of selling your services stage, right? So pricing guides, maybe we want to allow them to book time when we're sharing the pricing guide with them. So that would be an example of having the scheduler in your actual file, which we're going to be going through way in depth in a couple minutes here. That's going to be really where we spend the bulk of our time, is going through how to actually add scheduler to a file. So if you want to include it in a pricing guide to kind of sell the information that you have in that document, you can absolutely do that, right? Like, you have all your pricing outlined, what it's like to work with you, next steps, setting expectations, and then maybe at the bottom you say, have questions, book time with me here. And that's where you include your scheduler. Okay. Let's see what else. So of course, you would have them fill out even more of an in-depth questionnaire, so you could do that in a file as well. We'll look at an example in a couple of minutes that kind of shows you what that looks like if there was, if you wanted them to submit the contact form and then receive a file that is a really beautifully branded, compelling document that collects more information from them and allows them to schedule. Of course, you could do that too. So we'll go through options for sharing in files in a couple of minutes. The next stage here is your booking stage. Again, this is where we'll be spending the bulk majority of our time today. So this is best for photographers, coaches, consultants, interior designers, doulas, really anyone who needs to have their clients schedule time in order to receive the service they are paying for, right? That's kind of the use case that we're really going to spend the majority of our time going through today. Is your client has just paid you, and in order for them to receive the service they just paid for, they need to get some time on the calendar with you. Okay, we'll of course be going through all the other nuances along the way, but that's kind of the typical use case that we see. So again, booking is that service selection component, contracts and payments. So this is where we're going to add that scheduler piece in as well. The next kind of typical stage in a client flow. So these yellow stages up at the top are the kind of typical client flow steps that you might consider, right? So the client is inquiring, you're selling your services, you're getting booked, you're managing the project, and we'll go through collecting feedback in a couple of seconds here. So project management, this is all of those steps. Once your client is booked, you've got to kick off the work and the job that you're doing with them. Do you need to schedule as you're managing that project with them, as you're going through kind of the funnel of working through those steps with them? So inside of a file or an email template, you can have your scheduler included. So again, we're going to go through the file sharing component. But if you wanted to add this to an email template, basically what you would do is you take that same link. So the link is still copied to my clipboard, but just to show you again, you're going to copy it. You're going to come up to tools and my templates. And if you wanted to include it in an email template, you'll come down here. Let's find our new inquiry one. Thanks for reaching out. Please book a time here with me. So I'm going to highlight this whole thing. You can highlight one word, whatever you need to do. I'm going to make it bold. And then I am going to go ahead and insert the link. And I'm going to paste in my scheduling link that I just copied. Okay, and now this email template is saved so that when that opportunity comes up in the future and I need to quickly send off my scheduler to the client throughout managing that project, I've got the email template ready to go. Obviously, you're probably better at copywriting than we are in this example, but you get the idea. You can just quickly insert the hyperlink that way if you just want a quick one-off email. For more robust displays of information, if you need them to schedule and fill out a questionnaire, or schedule and go through some homework, or schedule in order to give a design review, like those more in-depth meetings, that's when you're going to consider including it in a file. And that's what we're going to show in a couple of seconds here. The other option for sharing during the project management stage is going to be one-off sharing inside of a project. So if we hop into a project, you can see that we can just go to schedule here. So you can do that, but you can also come down to the bottom here and insert a session link directly into an email on the fly from within a project. So there are a multitude of ways to share your scheduler is basically what we're going through, okay? So let's quickly hop back to our slides and go through these final examples. You can see obviously project management contains the execution and deliverable that you're working on for your client. The feedback stage is where you're collecting that feedback from your clients. You're offboarding them. You're asking for renewal, review, those kinds of things. Typically don't see scheduler here because you're done working with them. They don't get any more time from you, right? This is kind of offboarding. So typically not seeing the scheduler component here. So to recap, where to share your scheduler. You can do this on your website directly. You can just, or any other lead capture source that you have, you can just share that scheduler link out publicly. My only kind of hesitation in telling you guys to do this is that they will be coming into your HoneyBook pipeline with little, very, very little context. You will have a name, an email, and the time that they selected. So just keep that in mind so you can publicly share your scheduler link. The second thing is you can redirect after the contact form. So if you want them to be slightly more qualified, you want a little bit more information from them when they're added to your HoneyBook pipeline, you can adjust your contact form settings to redirect them to the scheduler link after submitting the contact form. The third option here is inside of a file. We have not explored this yet. That's what I'm about to go through, so stay tuned. So you can use a scheduler block to add to any relevant files so that right from within that dynamic file, they're able to select the time that works for them. Fourth piece here is in an email template, which we just went through. This is just going to be a hyperlink, making it super easy for quick sharing. And then, of course, within a project, we saw a couple different options for how to do that for more one-off situations, kind of on the fly, on the go. Okay, so now that's all of the foundational stuff. Let's actually get into this. How do we add our scheduler to files? Because for those selling, booking, project management stages in your client flow, you'll want to consider adding the scheduler block to your smart files so you can collect more than just a time on a calendar from them. So for the purpose of today's goal that we already kind of established at the beginning, we're building an all-in-one scheduler, sign, and pay file. So we're just going to focus on the booking stage for our demonstration. But keep in mind, as we're going through all the same steps that we're about to complete of adding your scheduler to a file, regardless of the stage that they're in, are going to be the same steps, right? Adding your scheduler to a file is the same process regardless of what stage you're looking to add it for. But for the purpose of today's exercise, we're just going to focus on the booking process to make it really simple for those folks who need to book time when they are in the process of paying, right? So if you're thinking about your process today and you need to identify, if this works for you, are you someone who, when your client submits payment or pays an invoice or God forbid, sends a check in the mail, right? If they're doing that, and once you receive that payment, you think, okay, I've got to reach out and get them on my calendar. If that's part of your process, what we're about to go through is perfect for you. Also, if you're someone who needs to get someone on the phone at any point during those project management stages, you need to collect some more questions, you need design feedback, those kinds of things, files, and sharing your scheduler in your files is also going to be perfect for you. Okay. Let's dive into it, shall we? Sick of my yammering, and I'm going to keep going here too. Okay, So when we are inside of Smart Files, inside of templates, if this doesn't look familiar to you, it might be because you have not added Smart Files as a functionality to your account yet, which we have the lovely pop-up for in the top of our chat there. So you can add that feature to your account right now today if you would like. The option is there at the top of the chat so that you can get this kind of view. And right away, you can see that we have different filters here, and one of them is actually for scheduler. So once you've added the scheduler component to a file, it is very easy to find and identify where those files are because you can filter for those things. So for example, if we wanted to find a file that contains scheduler, invoice, and contract, I've got one, okay? Or any file. So these filters can be very helpful for you as a business owner who does not have scheduler in your files today, right? Because this is a brand new thing that we're learning how to do. This is a great way for you to be able to think about your process and find the files that you would want to include scheduler with. So if you know, actually, this would be great for me in my questionnaire to include a scheduler link so that they can, I know this is the questionnaire I usually like to send right after they schedule time. So let me find my reflection questionnaire that I have them fill out right after they schedule time, and I'll just build the schedule step right into this document, right? So you can do that. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to pop into this example because this is the example that we're kind of aiming to build. And by the way, this is a template in the template gallery. If you like the way this looks, if you want to use this for your business, I've made some minor tweaks. For example, I added a contract and that's not in the template in the template gallery. But if this looks good to you and you think this could work for your business, it is in the template gallery. So you can go to the template gallery and type in instant booking. That's the title of this particular file in the search. And this one will pop up and you can save it and use it for your own account. Okay. But let's take a look at what we're working with. Okay. So this first page is just kind of a title page. Let's get ready for our first session. So this particular example is for kicking off your very first session with your clients. Again, maybe this doesn't work for your business. That's okay. We're just going to keep an open mind around the tools that we're looking at and take the pieces and elements that do work for our particular process today. Okay. So we've got a cover page, beautifully branded. We can see all of the beautiful imagery here and how this is all set up. We like the way this looks. The next page here is going to be our questionnaire page. So I know a lot of you guys, when you are booking session time with your clients, you want to collect information from them. You want to know a little bit more about what they're looking for, what their needs are, so that you go into this session no longer blind, right? You have some context around the person that you're going to be meeting with. That's exactly what this coach has done in this template that they built for us. So questionnaire and discovery consultation. Down here, we're setting some context. Thanks for taking the time to get to know us. Our services are customizable. Do you see services you want to learn more about? Select them below. What services are you interested in? Is there something else you're looking for that wasn't included? Describe your business and your goals. If you could snap your fingers, make things happen, what would they be? Right? These kinds of questions. So we're outlining this so that we have these kind of preliminary context around who we're meeting with. So we've got a questionnaire page here. And then we've got our scheduler. Okay, so how did this get into this file? Let me delete it so we can add it again. So when you're inside of a file, to add a block or get that block view that we were looking at way at the beginning of today's session, all you have to do is hover and add a block, and you're going to see that same exact view that we saw earlier today. You can see scheduler down below. You're going to click it, and it's going to say select a session. You can see you can also create a new session here. But like I said, if I was going to be sitting next to you guys, we're at a coffee shop, we're getting you set up in HoneyBook, the route I would have you go is build all your session types ahead of time through those steps, set your time zone, all that company, connect your calendar, all that good stuff. I would have you do that first so that by the time you get to this file, your options are already available and yep, I'm going to pull in my 60-minute consult. That's what this file needs. Okay, so you go ahead and pull it in. you'll notice that it's not displaying your availability. If you want to display, it's not displaying your availability in the template itself. If you want to see what your availability looks like with this actual consult call, you'll want to hit the preview button. Right now, it's just kind of a placeholder, but it is pulling in your 60-minute consult, okay? Down here, we have two options in terms of the requirements that we can toggle on or off for the client. So this first one says, client must schedule session. We have this toggled on. If we hover over the question mark, it says, when this is turned on, the client must schedule a session to continue through the file. That means the client will be stopped. If you have this turned on, the client will be stopped if they try to leave this page and they have not selected a time with you. So it will kind of force them into the experience of choosing a time that works. So it's going to kind of demand that they choose a time from your schedule. Okay, if you have this turned on, you can of course turn it off and make it an optional experience for the client. But if we are doing it the way we want to do it in today's example, we're going to leave this toggled on. The second piece here is client must pay to reserve a session. And what this is going to do is this is going to put the client through. So it says, when this is turned on, the client can select a time slot, but the session will only be scheduled after they've submitted payment. So this means it will not be officially added to your calendar until the client has paid for the session. This is great for you guys if you want to make sure that the times that are on your calendar are actually sessions that have already been paid for. You don't want some time slot being booked up or reserved on your calendar if the client has not actually paid for that session or paid for your time, right? So we're turning this on to ensure that only the sessions that have been paid for are added to your calendar. Okay, you can also adjust design settings over here. You can also edit the details and availability of this particular session here if you need to, but pretty straightforward. It's just going to pull in your scheduler that you already have set up based on the information we went through earlier, and then you're going to adjust those two settings depending on your preferences. Very straightforward to add scheduler to a file. And if I can backtrack for a second, I just want to quickly show you guys how to add questions too. If you want to add more, you can totally do that. But basically the way you add a question block, again, is to look for the add block and click question. Because I already have this question block down here, all I'm going to do is just continue to inline add more questions. So if I wanted to add more questions, I would hover and look for a smaller plus button, and I'm going to go ahead and select question. And it's going to give me the space to type in a new question, and I can control what those different question types are here or use the linked questions that are available, which will pull into the project type. So again, this is fabulous to include questions alongside scheduler to create that really seamless experience for both you and your clients, right? Okay, let's get rid of that and make our template beautiful again. We just went through how to add scheduler. Very, very straightforward there. If you want to get back to the settings of this, all you need to do is hover over the scheduler block itself, click in, and that is going to bring up those settings again. Okay, moving on to the invoice. This is where we have gone in and added the invoice component. It's not letting me do it because it's already added down below. So this is where, like any typical invoice that you're used to in HoneyBook, you can add your packages, display what's included, display the pricing. It's going to give a grand total down here, and you can adjust the payment schedule at the bottom. So we've got first payment is due today. We've got another payment due midway, and then one final payment 1 month before the project date. Okay, so you can always adjust any of those. You can trash can them, adjust the amount, adjust the due date, whatever you need. There are tons of options here. Okay, and then of course your invoice has its own settings as well. So you can click into the block, and the menu over here on the right-hand side will adjust accordingly to show you the different options and settings that you have when it comes to your invoice. Okay. The next piece here, of course, is your contract. Again, the way we did this is by adding a block and selecting contract and then choosing the template that we want to add. Very straightforward, right? So long as you have that pre-work done of having your packages set up or your contract templates set up or your sessions set up in HoneyBook. By the time you get to actually building this file, it's going to go really, really quickly. So that's why I have you do that kind of pre-work first, right? So we've got our contract here that our client can go through, fill out any relevant fields and sign at the bottom. And then finally, we have our payment page. So this is like our all-in-one kickoff document for our first session with them. We're asking them to submit the answers to those questions. We're asking them to choose a time that works for them, reviewing the 6-month coaching package that they're signing up for by initiating this document, by scheduling that first call with us, reviewing our terms of service and signing off on them, and finally submitting payment here on this page. Again, if this is too many steps for you, if this feels too dense, if this is not the right order for your specific business, you do not have to include all of these steps, right? I'm just showing you like big picture. If we were doing like everything we possibly could with the full functionality of what we have available, what would it look like? You can scale it back. You could even scale it up. We could have a video on that first page. We could have a thank you page after this that has a video thanking them personally or kicking off next steps or something else, right? So it all depends on your unique business process. And y'all, there are almost 1,000 of you here today, so I cannot talk through every particular situation, right? But take what you will from this, right? Take the bits and pieces that do apply to your unique business process. And that's what I want you to run with today. Okay, so that is ultimately our file. And I have 12 minutes left for questions. So let me hop over into the Q&A section here. And then again, obviously this is a template. So now when I go to a project, it's very easy to send this off. So I can quickly show you how to do that. But hopefully all of you guys are familiar with how to send a file, right? So we go to create new. I'm just going to do custom smart file, and then I'm going to filter for scheduler. And if I had a ton of scheduler here, I'd be like scheduler, invoice, and contract, and that gets me to my correct file. Plus whatever name I have for the file makes it super easy to find. And I can see all the actions this contains and even the folder that it's in. So it's very easy to locate and send it off to the client. Okay. Let's get into some questions. All right, let's see what got upvoted here. I'm going to start at the very, very top. So, okay. Kelly says, is this additional feature something we can use in place of Acuity? I love this question, Kelly. I think it depends on how many features in Acuity you are using. We went through, the features today. I'm not familiar enough with Acuity to say, side by side, this is the comparison direct, because it does kind of depend on how many of their tools you're using. But hopefully the overview that we did today gave you enough visibility into the tool to say, if it can replace it for your specific use case. Kelly says, can this be used with automations too? Trying to use this session scheduler for scheduling mini sessions for photography. Kelly, I love this question. Yes, absolutely. So this webinar today is actually a part 1 of a 2-part series that we are doing. And that is going to be all about how to use the file we just built with automations, essentially. So I will definitely be speaking to the mini sessions use case. I know y'all are dying for this feature. And we're close. It's not like 100% at parity with what I think people typically expect from their mini sessions experience. But I'm going to get you as close as I possibly can during that session in February. So definitely stay tuned and register for that if that's something you're interested in. Kelly also said, is there a way to do a bulk action to set availability for sessions rather than having to individually update every day in every session? There's no default for all sessions, rather it's within each session every day. So if you said you want it to apply to all Mondays, apply to all Tuesdays, and so on and so forth, that is the current functionality. Robert says, how do we get the client phone number for it to be a phone call? So when you set it to phone call, it'll automatically collect that information. And it'll say, who's calling who, am I calling you, or are you calling me? And then it'll have that in there. Jack says, love this flow, but could you split it up? I like doing phone consults before clients pick a package, so the invoice and contract wouldn't be able to be set before the call. Yes, absolutely, right? So if you need those pieces to be different documents, that's just how you build it. So inside of the scheduler file, you will simply have the questions and the ability to schedule. And then after your time talking to them, you can send off a document that has different elements, like the invoice and the contract, for example. So this is the piece where I'm saying you guys really just kind of need to figure out what your own unique process looks like and decide what bits and pieces make sense for you and kind of just take those and run with them. See here. Okay, let's just start off with Shannon. Is there a placeholder for the client to fill out their address? So you can have that in the contact form upon inquiry. I would recommend that if that's something that's important to you. You can also have it as a question inside of the file like we were just looking at. But in terms of the kind of general information that's displayed when you set up your scheduler, right? Like we were just looking at these, there's no questions in here, right? It's just straight up, asking them to choose a time that works for them. So there's not going to be anything in here like that. Olivia says, can this be used with the Calendly integration, or is it Honeybook's own thing meant to essentially replace the need for Calendly? Yeah, exactly. So this scheduler is native inside of Honeybook. This is the Honeybook scheduler. You will not need Calendly anymore. Again, I do think it's worth sitting down and kind of comparing the features that you're using in Calendly currently versus the features that are available in the Honeybook scheduler, and truly making sure that that aligns with your expectations. But yes, this is definitely meant to replace Calendly. Samantha says, I offer classes, meaning booking multiple people at the same time. Is there a way, or will there be a way to incorporate this kind of scheduling capability? That is not currently how the scheduler is set up, right? The way the scheduler is set up is it shows one appointment type and if you are available during that time. So if that slot gets booked up, it would not be available going forward for future people accessing the link. If that feature will be available in the future, I am not sure. But I can definitely make note of it and get that back to our product team and make sure it's something that they're aware of and considering for sure, which, as I mentioned, I'm sure they are, but yeah, can't really speak to if it's coming or not. Let's see. Olivia says, also, is there a limit to how many meeting types you can create on certain memberships? This is awesome. Great. No, there's no limit on the session types, so you can have as many as you need to in there. Olivia says, are clients able to choose based on their time zone? My clients are often not in the same time zone. Absolutely, yeah. So let's take a look at the preview. So this is the view that your clients will see. And as you can see here, they'll just simply select their time zone. And I think it should default to whatever time zone they're in, but they are absolutely able to adjust that and view your availability based on your time zone and view the availability based on their time zone. Okay, I know there are still a ton of questions in here that I wasn't able to get to, but hopefully the content that we went through and the questions that I did answer were helpful. Super, super glad to have you here, and I can't wait to see how you guys continue to use this feature to level up your businesses and give your clients exceptional client experiences. So I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous rest of your Wednesday, and hopefully I will see you at our next session. All righty, y'all. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.